YouTube Ozic going the Goat House is back, ranking the wide receivers and the tight ends for the NFL draft. Interesting receiver group. I'm here to split those guys up at the top and some more. We're doing this for every position group, so join us on our channel. Join us on Twitter. We have full NFL draft coverage live during day one. We'll have content during the 3 days and after as well. But on to my number one receiver. It's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. The top three are so close. Not a whole lot splitting them up. Honestly, it could come down to, who's healthy, the healthiest, and maybe what teams they go to. I don't think I've ever said that about any group of players in the draft, but it honestly could be. But the deciding factor, for me, it's a couple things, but you can argue any of them are a total package receiver. But I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is that ultimate total package receiver when it comes to size, athleticism, instincts, how smart these guys are, hands, contested catch ability. One of the other guys might be the top in some of those categories if you combine everything, route running as well. Body control is insane for Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he is the most total package type receiver. The size athletic combo is ridiculous. I think he's a really solid route runner. Yeah, but I love a lot of the time the problem is for college receivers is they only run a few different routes, or they'll run more routes, but their production comes from specific routes. Marvin Harrison Jr. has even production across the board, from his variety of routes in his route tree. So that's why I say he has an NFL route tree, so that's good. He's already polished in that area. That's actually huge. That kind of gets swept under the rug a little bit when it comes to evaluating these guys. And some of those guys that didn't have a big route tree, or they're stuck on one side of the field doing one or two, maybe three, just that different things, they struggle at the next level. So I'm not really worried about that with him. So again, total package type guy. I do think he was a lot better in 2022 than 2023. You could say, CJ Stroud to McCord. That is a big difference, but, now people are realizing how good CJ Stroud was. So, what happens if he doesn't have that elite, well, in the college level he's elite, and he's going to be elite in the NFL, but level quarterback, again, he still played out of his mind this year, so not super worried about it, but I don't know if it's a whole lot of it was, some of it was the quarterback play, but I felt like he kind of took it easy at times. I don't know if anybody else saw that, but I thought he kind of took it easy at times this year, and I don't love that, but the potential is bigger, so if you're just going off this past year's tape, he's better than that, in my opinion, so that's, in a way, it's kind of a good thing, in 2022, I think he's separated better, honestly. Routes were better. Noticed a lot of trying to, use the body of a corner, for an example, kind of going into him and then kind of breaking off that. A little bit too much of that where he's kind of sucked himself into contact. Kind of just nitpicking at this point when we talk about these elite guys. Again, total package receiver. And he's one of those guys, those true number one receivers. You think about those true number one receivers in the NFL. They're do-it-all type guys, but more importantly, when you need a big play, when you need to rely on them, they're your guy. They can go make that ridiculous catch if it's contested or not. They can get open in a crucial situation if they need to. They can align anywhere, run any route. That is what I'm looking for. That when I'm going to put a guy at the top, and that is a big reason why Marvin Harrison Jr. is at the top, because I think he could be that guy. Two, I'm going to go with Rome Odunze, and I think Odunze and Harrison Jr., all three of them, there's barely. In Nabers, too. All three of them, there's barely anything splitting them up. But I think Odunze and Marvin Harrison Jr. are pretty similar in terms of that last thing I said with Marvin Harrison Jr. When the game is on the line, you need a massive, massive play, whether it's just a big play, a first down, a touchdown, and you just need the guy to just do something. I think Harrison, that's probably the difference for me. If I had to split the three up, I think Marvin Harrison Jr., Odunze are slightly above Nabers. They feel like that true number one. When it's on the line, you get it to them. They do everything. And Nabers can become that guy. And I guess the argument, the total package argument for Nabers is he actually does align. We'll talk about Nabers in a little bit, but more in the slot than these other two guys, which they all can go outside. But talking about when the game's on the line, you need a contested catch, a big touchdown, a big grab. Odunze's that guy. Contested catch machine. What I love about him, is when you need a play. Washington was going to Rome, and he was always making that play. I actually thought he should have been in the Heisman conversation. Marvin Harrison Jr. was. Nabers had the production, obviously. They all had the production. Odunze had the production too. But I just thought how important Odunze was to that team when the game was on the line, or they just need a big first down, big catch. It was absurd. So he has the size too. And it's tricky part because the receivers that are taking over today's NFL, they're not the longest. Well, I shouldn't say longest because Justin Jefferson is only like 6'1", but he has super long arms, and you see on the way he snatches balls out of the air. And Odunze is pretty lengthy. But, yeah, they're not the tallest guys, I guess. But here we have some guys that have that old school elite size and 6'3", but they have the play style, the footwork, the moves, of those guys that are that size. So these guys have a ridiculous opportunity to become just something different here. But yeah, the best contested catcher in the class. When the ball's up in the air, Odunze is going to snatch it. Physical too. I don't think he gets enough credit with that, especially after the catch. Like he'll lower his shoulder, he'll run through somebody. Like not super often, but it's pretty impressive. Solid route runner. I think in a perfect world, he could separate a little bit more. Like he has the most contested catches, and it's beautiful. It's awesome. And when he needs to get that, he does it. But you wish there maybe less contested catch scenarios, more separation. So it's hard to say he relies on contested catch, but you wish there was a perfect world. You wish there was a little bit more separation, but he can separate. Maybe that would make him number one if he did a little more consistently. The system at Washington's a little tricky. Where it gets the most out of those receivers, and then it kind of goes into the next part, like arguably receiver 2 for Washington in 2022, where actually Jalen McMillan was probably their best receiver, more catches, more touchdowns. Doesn't mean everything, and then McMillan was hurt a little bit this year, and Polk was productive in 2022. And Polk really took off this year, so it almost at times it almost feels like whoever's in there, they're going to be good, they're going to be productive. But these guys are still really talented and they make plays. I love all three of those Washington receivers. But it is a little tricky because that system, like I feel like a lot of guys can be pretty productive. They're not going to be as good as like the elite player Rome Odunze is, but it's a solid system. A tiny bit different, but maybe comparable is Tennessee last year, like Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman, which those guys could be really good in the NFL still. I like their upside, but those guys were insane in college, and that system, it like really got them open and gave them a chance to make some big time plays. And it's definitely a little more difficult in the NFL. But this is a different caliber player here, and it is a totally different offense. His offense coordinator got a job with the Seahawks, so it kind of tells you where the NFL is heading as well, and what they think. How what they think of that offense. So it could definitely work for sure. It makes it a little scary, but not as much when you have this talented of a player. Number 3 is Malik Nabers. I have a Malik grade on him. He's different than the other two. He's definitely different than the other two. There is not much splitting those three up, but my deciding factor mainly was like when I think about receivers, like the guy, like that number one receiver that when the game is on the line, like he has to make the play. I put Marvin Harrison Jr. and Odunze in that category a little bit more, just a little bit more. But Nabers, yeah, he can turn a play that's supposed to be just made to get a couple yards for a first down into a touchdown. The run after catch, the ability after the catch, the yak, ridiculous. He's elite in a lot of categories, and he's an elite grade. But as an athlete, acceleration, I mean, when he's maneuvering after the catch and when he turns upfield, it's like he blows by everybody. It's ridiculous. I mean, he clocked in at some good times at the pro day, but I feel like he plays faster than that at times, and it's fun. And I see why people have him receiver 1. It's like different ability. And an LSU receiver, it's a different ability, and there's a lot to like there. And what his case for being like a total package guy is he was 100% like equally effective in the slot and outside. He was pretty close to 50% snaps for both too. So you love that. You love guys that can move around a little bit, and a solid separator, mainly because of his athletic ability. But I have noticed his ability to find open spots in zone as well. So I do like that about him. He does that, didn't have a long list of drops, but he does have some drops in body catch attempts. Sometimes they're caught, sometimes not. On routine plays, like just hitches or some drags where he's just wide open. And it's just, that's kind of where it happened. And it's like, you rather see those drops on, like Odunze's drops were probably on some crazy contested catch. And he had 3. Nabers had 5, and a lot of them were in those scenarios, which is like, like we're going to go to you in that where you just schemed up a play for you wide open. Like you better catch the ball 100% of the time on those. So that's why it's, even though it's not a big list of plays that have featured drops, but they're ones that you just don't want to see. So not the end of the world. Again, only 5 total drops. Sometimes with the body catches, don't love that, but not, again, nitpicking here with these elite players. And then one thing, most of his production came from hitches. Like he had definitely some go balls where, I think he had 4 touchdowns on go routes. So he had production there. So don't get me wrong, but an insane amount of his production was from hitches, just straight up hitches, on the sideline there. And, a 30 plus reception. I mean, it's a lot of one thing, and that's kind of been a challenge for some receiver prospects, even some really good ones, maybe like Nabers, where when it gets to the NFL, you can't just keep doing one thing, And he did more than just one thing, but a majority of his best plays, like he ran. So I don't really want to say he doesn't have a good route tree, because he ran plenty of other routes. Maybe not as much of a variety of a comparison to Marvin Harrison Jr., but where he had his big plays and his receptions, it was mainly hitches, and I just wish there was more to go off of than rather just 1 or 2 things. So a little bit more success. So I put a little bit more success on a variety of routes. Again, not a major negative. We're kind of nitpicking with these elite players. But back-to-back LSU guys here. I have Brian Thomas Jr., who I think he's underrated, actually. People realize he's good, but I think he's a top 10 caliber player. Another LSU receiver. I mean, different than Malik Nabers, but he was almost, just as good. I mean, that size, we're looking at like that old school elite receiver size, and the problem with the last few draft classes, those guys with the size, they didn't have the speed, they didn't have the separation ability, or maybe they dropped the ball too much. Like these guys with the 6'3", body, they can play. They kind of fit today's game. So we almost have a new new wave of receivers. He's really not mocked enough around the top 10. I would not have a problem. Like if the 3 other receivers were off the board and the Bears took him at 9, it was like, maybe people say, would you rather just trade back a little bit? I can understand that, but you get a pretty good player here. That's just an example. But yeah, the size athleticism combo is ridiculous. And the physical part, there's categories where I wish he could be a little more physical, but the physicality part at the point of the catch is insane. Great contested catcher, absolute touchdown machine this year. I mean, some of the catches he had, ridiculous. He's able to track the ball perfectly, knowing when to, go up for the play or knowing when to let it drop in. Just did a phenomenal job at tracking the football and just beating the man on him. Like situations where nobody would get separation. It's kind of just a goal line fade, and he just wins. He just continues to win. But I think he's an underrated route runner. I saw twitchy ability, quick feet, good footwork overall. Perfect world. I guess he could have separated a little bit more, but I thought he did a good job. I see a quicker DK Metcalf, and if you watch our pick show, Pete is on the show with us, Pigskin Pete, and he's a receiver guy. He's a receiver guru for us, and he said the same thing. He sees like a DK Metcalf type player, and DK is a great player in the NFL. And I know DK ran really fast, but his issue was kind of the quickness, the footwork, in tight spots, and turning, opening up. And Brian Thomas, I think, dominates him in that category. So we had a special player here. Some surprising drops to kind of come out of nowhere. It's kind of like Malik Nabers. Could be more physical versus man. Kind of didn't see a whole lot of press when he did. I thought he, could have. He's a big guy. Like I know he's a little thin, but he's a big guy. I use it a little bit more, and then just brushing off guys. But he does a good job at the point of the catch in that category. So, so how's it going to be against some really good press man corners? We'll see. That's really the only thing. Like I guess the release and being, playing against press and playing against guys in man, like, because that. If he was better in that category, he'd probably be another elite receiver here. Production came from go and hitches, so somewhat similar to Nabers, a little bit more on the goes side of the routes. Needs to add more to the tree. Yeah, Nabers ran a lot of routes. It's just kind of where he had production was limited. Brian Thomas didn't run a huge variety of routes. They didn't really need him to. But yeah, so you wish you could add a little bit more of that route tree. That's my number 4 receiver. And even though I'm calling him top 10 and I'm just calling Mitchell round 1, it's actually really close. I'm just not going to call him like he's not really going to be in consider because I already know in the back of my mind like who's going to be my top 10 players. Like Brian Thomas is in a battle for that, where Mitchell is just going to be a round 1 guy, but I love him in the first round. And he's not far off from Brian Thomas Jr. I think the difference is where I almost want to go Mitchell for is his release is fantastic, whether it's against press or not. Like, he explodes off the ball. He's quick. He's twitchy, and he's pretty good size, too. 6'2", 205. I know he's pretty thin, but pretty good size. So that's where he is way better than Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr., they're both long guys you can throw the ball up to. I think Brian Thomas Jr. beats him in that category. I do love Mitchell when in that playoff game where he's like, hey, throw me the ball. Throw it up for grabs. I'm going to get it. He did it against the second best team in the country. So he's able to do those things as well. But again, what I like about him, he has that NFL route tree as well. Like he didn't run just this and that. Like he ran a collection of and had success on a collection of routes. So it's like even though they're like big, long, contested catchers, it is a battle between Brian Thomas Jr. and Mitchell. Like they definitely have different strengths and weaknesses. The reason to go for Mitchell, more of an NFL route tree, much better at least. Reason to go for Brian Thomas Jr. is, the downfield ability is ridiculous. Like he could be a burner. Like they're both around the same 40 time. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is faster. Like he burns guys. He scores touchdowns like crazy because his ability to track, burn, and make that contested catch. Mitchell can make those contested catches as well. But some Mitchell routes are fantastic. It almost looks like a smaller guy the way he runs those routes. Definitely takes plays off though. Like I'm watching tape and how he's moving because he explodes on the release on plays where he's targeted, at least looked at. So you could tell instantly and within the route he is not getting the ball. Like I hate that. You see guys give limited effort, but it's at a certain point. Like you can 100% tell if he's going to get looked at or not. Like you can by his body language from start to finish, and I don't like that. Of course, it is something you can fix though. But there are going to be coaches or scouts or GMs that are going to be like, I hate that. Like I don't love that. So it's a little tough, even though it's a thing you can fix or change. And could separate a little more consistently. I think he has it in him though. I think those times, it looked like he was running routes, but he wasn't separating because he was half-assed it because he knows he was like the third option, or it was a one read play and it wasn't him, so it could have been that. But man, these receivers are so good. So there's a lot of good receivers. We're gonna talk about more here in a second, but a lot of good receivers, obviously. And a lot of people talk about like 8 receivers in the first round. I could see more than 5 going in the first round. But to me, there are 5 that, yes, for sure, first round players. I'm not necessarily saying locks. I think they are locks going to first, but that's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm saying like I feel great about getting those players in the first round. Like for any draft class, for sure, first round talent. Like 5 is what I got. Here are the 5. There's other guys I consider depending on who's on the board. So I think people maybe... I don't want to say the class is overrated because that's not accurate, but I think people overrate, maybe the grade a little bit, like calling more than 5, like sure thing, first round guys. But ranking the rest of these guys is pretty tough. But I'm going to go Xavier Legette from South Carolina at 6. It's just, there's so much to like. You wish you would separate a little bit more. You wish you would add a little bit more to the route tree, but he's tough. He's physical. He'll go up and catch the ball. So he's not just after the catch guy. He can go up and catch the ball, but he has the freak athleticism too. It's a lot to like. Comparisons to A.J. Brown. He actually timed faster than A.J. Brown, but A.J. Brown plays faster and separates much better. But I could see the comparisons. I could definitely see it there. Roman Wilson at 7. I like Roman Wilson. I might be a little higher on him than most people. Maybe someone in the same range. It's so hard to split these guys up. It's really going to depend on what team they go to. We can make a future video before the draft kind of really breaking down these receivers, like who is more of a slot, who's more of an outside guy, who can do both and could go to any team. I like Roman Wilson in the slot. Interesting comparison there would be Amon or St. Brown. I do think St. Brown, that's kind of high praise, maybe won't be as good, but I do think St. Brown is tougher after the catch, but Wilson's got some pretty good vision after the catch. Roman Wilson doesn't do anything that's going to get you out of your seat. Like Legette, he doesn't do anything like that, but the guy is always open and he always catches the ball. Let's not overthink this here. Lad McConkey at 8, did deal with a little bit of an injury last year, was much better in 2022. Just didn't seem right last year, so that's a good thing. The 2022 tape's great, but it's also kind of okay, what are we gonna get? He is really twitchy, really quick with his feet, really good, movement on the routes. Good job, good way to separate, by using his nasty footwork. Pretty tough after the catch as well. So I'll go with him 8. I like Jalen McMillan a lot, probably higher. I don't think too many people have him in the top 10. Kind of going back and watching him in 2022, really liked him. That Washington scheme, though, it feels like anybody you put in there, they would be pretty productive. But these guys are on another level. They are talented. But McMillan's really, really good route runner, gets separation, has the speed, looks pretty lengthy, too. I didn't check his exact measurements, but he plays lengthy the way he snatches the ball. You can give him the ball underneath or downfield. He's going to get open. Very quick. Xavier Worthy at 10. He's maybe the toughest guy to rank. At one point I wanted to put him a lot higher, better ranked, because you go back to his earlier years. You got to go to 2022 for McConkey. You got to go to 2022 for McMillan. You got to go to earlier years for Worthy. Because they were better then, or injuries popped up with McMillan and McConkey. But Worthy was a little better earlier in the earlier years. He dropped the ball a little bit more the next 2 years. Such a dangerous threat, though, big playability down the field. But, yeah, a lot of his game is just go or screen pass, and so many screen passes. So, not as much as Corley, though, who we'll talk about. But it's just sometimes those guys don't translate right away to the NFL. And he's really, really fast. Is he the NFL, the fastest man of all time on the field? I definitely think Tyreek Hill's faster. So does it match? It's close enough if it matches the game tape, but it's a tough one to rank because he's a boomer bust guy. Next tier, Jermaine Burton's pretty underrated. I like his ability to separate, go up and catch the ball too. Not afraid to go up. Played for Georgia and Alabama. To me, that means something. Troy Franklin, I've kind of dropped a little bit throughout this process. I don't want to call him a one-trick pony, but he could be just a straight line speed downfield guy. Did have 9 drops this year as well. Keon Coleman, a lot to like about him. He's a guy that I've dropped over time too. Just doesn't separate a whole lot. Open target percentage was 47. That's pretty damn low. Has that big playability, that contested catch ability. Freak athlete too. I mean, he's faster with the 40 set at the combine. So it's a tough one. It's a guy you really want to like a lot more. Guys like N'Keal Harry kind of scare me in that category. Ricky Pearsall, a lot to like about him too. I think he's going to do really good. He's got him in the same, I think Roman Wilson, Lad McConkey, Jalen McMillan, and Ricky Pearsall, they're all kind of in the same category. They're all pretty athletic, mainly slot receivers that are going to separate. And they got pretty solid hands, pretty damn good hands. They're all pretty much in the same category. I think those other guys are, they separate a little more consistent, a little twitchier. Pearsall's a freak athlete, freaky catching the ball as well. He reminds me a lot of Adam Thielen. Not just because he's white. I didn't say the same thing about McConkey or any of those guys like that, but just the way he moves, and the way he catches the ball. A lot of Adam Thielen. So I kind of put these in tiers. And then the next tier after that, really good receivers. Javon Baker, he used to be at Alabama. He's with Central Florida. I was kind of left wanting more from him, but he's got long arms, can snatch the ball out of the air, good downfield, pretty decent after the catch. Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky is the after the catch monster, getting comparisons to Deebo Samuel. Deebo played much better competition, and broke those tackles, but I think Corley can break tackles at the next level. It's just I just wish he did that against better competition, but there was just insane amount of screen passes. There's not a whole lot to his route tree. So I just wish there was more. Jalen Polk, really solid contested catcher. Pretty good on the underneath routes for that type of guy as well. Not super flashy. Sometimes on those contested catches he is, but I do like Polk. I kind of went into this process liking him more than McMillan, but I watched McMillan's tape last year in the games he played this year. I'm like, nah, McMillan's better. They're different, but he's better. And then Tez Walker next. Tez Walker's a guy you really want to like. He's got today, Justin Jefferson measurables, the length. Almost really close with every measurable. And he's very athletic too, and he'll make a big play here and there. Just kind of a one-trick pony though. Kind of just run straight down the sideline. A little inconsistent, but he's a guy you want to work with. Malik Washington, I think, is going to be really good in the slot. At the next level, the Virginia receiver was very productive. And he'll make a special catch here and there as well. Taj Washington from USC, I think that's actually the better USC receiver. You can get him the ball underneath, but downfield, he's big playability, some really solid speed. Then Jacob Cowing from Arizona is a really good guy underneath as well. Really strong after the catch, really shifty after the catch. And then Rosemy Jacksaint from Georgia, I think is a little underrated. He's pretty good catching the football in contested catch situations. Not going to separate a ton, but I think he's underrated. And there's more really good receivers. This is not all my tiers. It's just how good this class is. It's so tough to split these guys up. It's really, again, a lot of these guys are so close. Like I said, Wilson, McConkey, McMillan, Pearsall, they're all pretty comparable into what type of player they are and what they're going to be. It's really going to come down to what team they go to, honestly. And I don't think I've ever said that about a position group here. So it's a fun class. It's definitely a fun. I can't wait to see the order they come off the board. I'm pretty positive about those top five. Well, I'm curious about what order the top five come off the board, but where they land as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then the tight end I have a scouting report for is my number one, Brock Bowers, who have the elite grade. Everyone does for a long time here. Total package type tight end. Really does it all. You put him in line. You really dominates from the slot. Really good athlete, explosive, tough after the catch. He's got that mindset and the physical and athletic ability where after the catch, I'm going to get those extra yards. That's where the George Kittle comparison kind of comes into play. I'm going to go get that first down. I'm going to get it, and there's no one going to stop me. I love that. He moves the sticks as good as anyone out there. I think underrated as a run blocker. I expected him to be worse based on how people were talking. Not that everyone's saying he's really bad. You could be a better contested catcher, but I thought we saw that 2 years ago. So some of these guys got to go back to 2 years ago, but he was really good this year still. Obviously, he played his game. And then more of a route tree. A lot of it is kind of those schemed up plays where it's a little speed out, just dump it off, and he's great with that. And teams are going to do that in the NFL. It's just, you wish comparison Sam Laporta had a little bit more of a route tree last year, even though Brock Bowers is a much better prospect. Laporta did things he did not do in college, in the NFL. So he ended up being better at the next level instantly. But I just wish there was a little bit more besides the obvious underneath schemed up things. And there is a little more in that, but perfect world, you wish there was a bit more. And then the rest of my tight end rankings, I am a huge fan of Ben Sinnott from Kansas State. Every rankings, I haven't seen a shit ton of rankings, I guess, but I feel like Jatavion Sanders is everyone's tight end too, and he's very solid. There's a lot to like, but and I see Sinnott around that 5, 6, 7 range for tight ends. He's firmly my tight end too. One of my favorite players in the draft. This guy is a do-it-all type tight end. He could be a better blocker, so I guess he's definitely not bad in that category. So, but I guess that's where he's kind of taking some hits. But man, the guy can play inline in the slot. I've seen him run different routes, see him catch the ball anywhere on the field. He's athletic in his route. He's really good route runner. I've seen double moves, very quick, good footwork, catches anywhere on the field. Really tough after the catch. That snow game they had this year, I loved watching him on that one. He's fun, and he just tested out of his mind at the combine, and it's you kind of go back and watch, yeah, he's got a little bit of that in him. So if there was going to be a Sam Laporta this year, it's almost impossible what he did. He was actually a way better player, playing against better competition. So it's probably not going to happen, but if there was going to be a guy, this is your guy. I don't think there's any doubt about it. So I would take him in the second round. So I don't know. Jatavion Sanders, I think it's another boomer bust guy. At times I'm this is one of those big receiver tight ends. They don't really work out too often in the NFL. It's a little tough. Like even an elite one like Kyle Pitts, I think he'll work out now that he has a quarterback, but even he kind of struggled to figure it out a little bit. But so it's a little tricky. I do see the comparisons with Njoku. I kind of can see that. He's really good on those jump balls. He's pretty athletic over the middle of the field and the acceleration after. Cade Stover, another tough like old school tight end. The Notre Dame game was great. Multiple games were great, but against good defenses, really tough after the catch. He could end up being, and I'm high on him. I have number 4. Could go in the 3rd round, but he could end up being like what I'm saying Sinnett is. But very, very fun to watch. And then Theo Johnson 5, a guy you definitely want to like because he's really long, good size, super athletic. You can go up and catch the ball. You just left kind of wanting more. You wish there was a little bit more, but Penn State had had a couple guys to go to there in that room. But a freaky dude. Next here, Tanner McLaughlin from Arizona, I like a lot. Probably going to be, Sinnett's going to be on my guys list. McLaughlin's probably going to be up there too. Seems to be a lot lower for other people. I was almost tempted in putting that tight end 5, but it's tough not to put Theo Johnson there with his upside, his athletic ability. But McLaughlin gets open. Like he was a weapon for Arizona. Why are people low on him? I think fans are probably higher on him than like big media. But why are they? Maybe why he drops? It's because he doesn't really have the length you look for. Like he might even have he might be a little bit lacking in that category for receivers. I don't want to say lacking, but so you wish there was much more length for being a big body catcher but blocker as well. So that's the issue. Eric Alt from Iowa, gotta like the Iowa tight ends. Dealt with some injuries, so that's his issue. But big, pretty damn athletic. Like he has some speed. Seen him run away from guys, usually using those strides. Tip Ryman showed out the combine and he showed out on the field as a blocker for Illinois. But he's more athletic than given credit for. I think he actually will be a better pass catcher at the next level. And then Barner and Holker, got a Michigan guy and Colorado State guy next in line. Holker made some crazy catches. You just wish there was a little bit more athletic, more speed perhaps. But I kind of like this tight end class. I mean, there's guys that can be, Bowers is ridiculous. Sinnett could be next Laporta. Sanders has that like an Njoku-like ability. Maybe a Kyle Pitts. Stover's that like physical, like grinding tight end that like you put him in a game, he's gonna go to work for you. He's gonna play pretty well. Johnson's an upside guy. McLaughlin's a guy that gets the job done. He reads coverages. He sits down when he needs to, catches the ball well. He's pretty decent after the catch. Just kind of lacking that length. And if Eric All stays healthy, he can be pretty solid. And Ryman's already a good blocker. If he can develop as a pass catcher, man, he can be pretty good. So it's actually a pretty good group here. So decided to combine the pass catchers, receivers, and tight ends here to kind of get moving on these rankings. A lot more content to get to. And then our live stream, day 1 of the NFL draft, the recap, the winners, losers, the grades throughout the draft, undrafted free agencies after. I can't wait. Cannot wait. So hopefully you join us on here and on Twitter. That's very important. Links in the comments whether you're looking for code GOAT on GLD Shop and Liquid IV for a percentage off. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.